I knew there was a thing in my closet, something evil, but I also knew I was dreaming and I should face my fear. I tried to look directly at the closet door, but if I moved my eyes, my head would turn away. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't look directly at it. Then I woke up in a cold sweat. At first, I felt relieved that it was over, but very shortly I realized it wasn't a dream and there really was something in the closet. I was laying on my back and I couldn't move. I didn't really hear it, but I could kind of feel this sickening laughter wash over me, in me and through me, in waves emanating from my closet. Suddenly the thing throws a human head at me and it lands on my chest, face up. It was this girl I knew from high school. Up to this point, I had been terrified, but kind of holding it together. But when that head landed on me, I lost it. I can't even scream. All I can do is make these grunting sounds, moaning sounds. I'm wriggling and straining, trying to rock from side to side to get it off me, but I can't move. This seemed to last maybe a minute or two, and then I really woke up. It was so traumatic that for weeks I would be scared when I woke up that I wasn't really awake and that something horrible might happen at any second. It still makes my skin crawl when I think about that laugh.
This just happened to me a couple weeks ago, at night, while I was in bed. I woke up and saw a small child's hand come out from under my bed, followed by his head. No eyes, no nose, and just 3 weird slits for a mouth. He looked at me for a second, then whispered,
"I can only see the scariest things."
He then stood up and started violently pounding on the side of my bed. All I could do was lay there and sort of moan. I heard my roommate wake up, and the boys seemed to hear him as well, because he jumped to the end of my bed and sort of crouched down, staring at my door. My roommate came in to see what was going on, and as I fully woke up, I could see the boy slither back under my bed out of the corner of my eye.
When I was little, I remember countless nights where I would lay in bed, completely motionless, against my will. Sometimes there would be a shadow figure in the corner, crouched down, just watching me, with invisible eyes. Not knowing what it was, naturally, I was terrified. I would try to yell for my mum, but no sound would come from my mouth. Sometimes the figure would move closer to the bed. If it got too close, I would usually will my voice into existence out of pure, unadulterated, terror-fueled adrenaline and yell for my mum. As an adult, I would see several beings, shadowy, thin human forms, moving rapidly in and out of my bedroom, circling the bed. Sometimes I could hear them whisper incoherent words in my ear. One night, fairly recently, I was on the cusp of sleep, and for whatever reason, my eyes shot wide open. Standing above my bed was a pale woman with curly red hair and no eyes. The moment my eyelids flung open, she put her face right in front of mine. The whole interaction lasted for maybe 2 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. I blinked and she was gone. Sometimes I would wake up to the sound of blood-curdling screams. The next morning, I would ask the other people in the house if they heard the screams in the middle of the night, but no one ever acknowledged hearing them. The only time I could get a decent night's sleep in my late teens to mid-20s was when I got hammered drunk, as that seemed to quell the night terrors. It was always a treat to have a new boyfriend sleep over and wake up to his horrified face looking at me because I had just sat straight up in bed and started screaming like I was getting stabbed. I'm 30 now, and after reading up about sleep paralysis and possible triggers for it, it doesn't happen too often. For me, intense periods of stress sets them off, so I try to keep things as simple and chill as possible. When it does happen, it doesn't scare me like it used to because I know what it is. It's not ghosts, it's not evil shit, it's not anything supernatural. It's just my stupid brain.
My partner and I were staying down south in this weird little town over New Year's. He went out with his friends one night, leaving me at the site alone. I was sitting in the bedroom with the door open to the kitchen, and suddenly I see a woman walk past the door and open the fridge, then close it. I tend to see spirits a lot, so it wasn't unusual for me, but not knowing who she was a little scary. Freaking out, I call my partner, and he doesn't answer because there's hardly any reception. So I sit awake in this room by myself for a good 3 hours. Finally, the boys get back. I don't tell them what happened because they wouldn't understand. Instead, I just complain about how long they were out for. We go to bed. I'm really restless because of everything. And suddenly I feel this jolting in the bed. I wake up and ask my partner what's wrong. He doesn't speak for a good 5 minutes, then finally gasps and says, "Just hold me." So I ended up holding him for the rest of the night. The next morning, we wake up and he says to me, "This woman last night was holding me down and screaming in my face. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to freak out." I tell him what I saw earlier that night, and we both agree to leave that day. There was no way we were going to stay another night there. A few months later, he passed away, suddenly, at age 21.
I awoke in my room, sunlight coming through the windows. As I tried to move, I felt as if my muscles were made of concrete and gravity was somehow pulling at me at an incredible rate. Scared, I tried to look around. I see a man, clear as day. He's completely normal and is an older man. He looks relaxed, leaning up against the wall. He wore slacks and a button-up. He just stared at me, right into my eyes. He was there. He was real. I tried to scream "help me" to my roommate, but all I could get out was a raspy, soft-toned "help." He smiled. I noticed he was tapping his foot to some sort of creepy, simple beat. He just stared. The more I watched him, the more real everything got. Then without moving, his face was in my face, screaming the most blood-curdling scream ever. I closed my eyes and cried until it stopped. When I opened my eyes, I was awake and I could move. I was in my room. It was the same scene, but there was no man.
I slept on the floor of my parents' bedroom until an absurd age because I thought my room was haunted. The event that finally broke me happened one night when I was sleeping on their floor because company protects you from ghosts, obviously. I heard the noise of their bedroom door opening, so I opened my eyes to see a dozen or so pairs of feet entering the room silently so as not to wake anyone else up. I tried to sit up to see what was going on, only to find myself unable to move. I looked above me, and there was a figure, clad in a black suit, holding me down. That alone would have scared most people, but what truly paralyzed me with fear was his face, or rather, a lack of face. It was blank, as if someone had stolen it. All that was left was a mouth, a ragged oval that sucked at the air and stole my breath. I glanced down at the figure standing at my feet to see that they too had no faces. They knelt down and held me to the floor as one put on a pair of gloves. They were going to take my face. Theirs had been stolen, and they wanted mine to replace it. I would become one of them. I saw my mother's hand hanging over the bed, just out of reach. I tried to move, to wake her. Maybe if I got to her in time, she and my father could escape. They could take my sister and get out before the faceless men came for them. But the men held me down as the gloved man placed a knife to my temple. He made a small incision and slipped his finger inside, pulling at the skin and tearing my face away. I struggled to warn my mother, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, vision fading as my face was torn away. I awoke to find my parents standing over me, lights on, dog going berserk, and my sister standing in the doorway. Apparently, I had started shrieking in my sleep, and they couldn't wake me before my heart finally gave out. My mother, who was trained in CPR, had to revive me, as my heart had stopped beating out of sheer terror. After this incident, we went to the hospital, where it was discovered that I suffer from pretty severe sleep paralysis. That, coupled with a birth defect that makes my heart weak, had nearly killed me. Don't believe what they say. Your dreams can kill you.